Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvamanusandathami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshinim Yam Brahma Varunendra Rutra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangpadakramopanisadai Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tatkatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyantam na vidusura suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. My 3 your books are here, so please. So let us chant. Let's chant 22, 23, 24 and 25, 4 verses of 6th chapter. Number 22, Yam labdhva chaparam labham. Yam labdhva chaparam labham. Yam labdhva chaparam labham. Manyante nadikam tataha. Manyante nadikam tataha. Yasmin sthito na dukkhena. Yasmin sthito na dukkhena. Gurunapi vichalyate. Gurunapi vichalyate. Tam vidyat dukkha samyoga. Tam vidyat dukkha samyoga. Viyogam yoga samgitam. Viyogam yoga samgitam. Sanishchayena yoktavyaha. Sanishchayena yoktavyaha. Yogo nirvinna cetasa. Yogo nirvinna cetasa. Sankalpa prabhavan kaman. Sankalpa prabhavan kaman. Tyaktva sarvana sheshataha. Tyaktva sarvana sheshataha. Manasairvendriyagramam. Manasairvendriyagramam. Viniyamya samantataha. Viniyamya samantataha. Shanai shanairuparamit. Shanai shanairuparamit. Buddhya dhriti grihita grihitaya. Buddhya dhriti grihitaya. Atmasamstham manaf kritva. Atmasamstham manaf kritva. Na kinchidapi chintayet. Na kinchidapi chintayet. Okay, good. So in the verses 20 to 23, two things were simultaneously pointed out. Two things in verses number 20 to 23. One thing was the result of dhyanam, because the topic of this chapter is dhyanam, which is meditation in general. So with respect to that, in the verse number 20 to 23, two things were pointed out. One is the result of dhyanam, and the other one is the indications of dhyanam. When will you know that your understanding of the Atma, your meditation is successful? How will you know that? So this is what we call a definition of samadhi, and also called the result of samadhi. Both are the same. And in fact, what is said in our Shastra is that the definition of a jnani, of a person who is has become wise to the understanding of the self, should be seen as a goal of the ajnani. Right? That's very obvious. In other words, the indication, the definition of a jnani is what I should really strive for. And so there, one side light to this is interesting discussion how that takes place. I'm reading the Brahma Sutra in the mornings for my breakfast time study. And so there's a lot of discussion between the Vedanta Shastra and a lot of the other kind of Shastras that happen. And in the end it is pointed out that please see that the Vedanta works. You see, in many of the other schools of thought, whether or not you will achieve this is not known. In fact, most of the spiritual disciplines in the world say that you won't get it now, but maybe in the next life you may be able to achieve some freedom. So we don't know. We don't know what will happen. Vedanta Shastra is the only one which says you can achieve it now. In fact, people have taken the truth of the self as complete freedom in their own lifetime. It works. It is not theoretical, it really works. So this is what is called the indications of a jnani. The indications of a jnani were given as 7 of them, and that we finished that. And the final one was very interesting. I thought this is an important verse, which is number 23, and it says, "Tam vidyat dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga samgitam." And so the Bhagavad Gita, this is, as I mentioned last week also, this is a very often quoted verse and often referenced verse. And what it is saying is that the ultimate indication of a jnani is that the definition of yoga for a jnani means a wise person, the ultimate definition of a wise person, which is called yoga samgitam. Yoga samgitam means the definition of yoga. So oftentimes, this is another somewhat, I think, a confusing thing, is the interchangeability of the word yogi with a jnani. And so ultimately, Lord Krishna says that it is the same. There may be some differences in the way people understand it, but he uses it interchangeably. Similarly, he uses the word Brahman and Ishvara interchangeably. There's no big difference. So one is as we saw in the Dakshinamurti class on Tuesday night. So Shiva and Dakshinamurti are one and the same. One is a teacher, the other one is just sitting there blessing you. That's all. There's no big difference. So similarly here also the yogi and a jnani are one and the same. So here the definition of a yogi, which is a definition of a jnani, is given very well. It says yoga samgitam. Samgitam means one which is defined. It's a unique definition of a jnani. What is that? Tam vidyat dukkha samyoga viyogam. This is an important thing for us to remember. And that means that any dukkha in my life is due to an obstruction in my life. It is not my nature. Just like, for example, when you get some disease like flu, let's take flu, or a common cold for that matter, then you know this already, that flu is not my nature. It is something that came from outside and will go. Taken care of, it will go. So it is a kind of like an obstruction. When you get bitten by something, that means that it will go. So dukkha means any problems in life should be understood as an outsider that is obstructing my nature. That's all. So this is why the example of cataract is done very well in our Shastra. In those days also, cataract was done. And so cataract is a very beautiful example, because cataract doesn't mean that your eye is defective. It just means that something is covering it that can be removed. That is the essence of this verse. So he says the indication of a jnani is that when a dukkha comes, it is like an outsider and it will go. So your drishti is towards your own nature. You don't start doubting, oh my God, my life is full of problems. That means I'm full of problems. When you say my life is full of problems, means I am full of problems. No. That is the ajnani. The jnani feels that if something happens, it will go. It is prarabdha karma. My nature is joy alone. And that comes from study, from experience, from thinking. So anyway, so those were the 7 different indications of a jnani, and also the result of a jnani. The result for a jnani were given. That if I progress, and also another way to look at it is, if you wanted to measure, for those of us that have been studying Vedanta for a while, if we wanted to evaluate, it's kind of like, you evaluate yourself. My 2 granddaughters, they go to this middle school called the Girls' Middle School in Palo Alto. And so their mother, my daughter-in-law, was kind of figuring out where to send them. And they talked to a number of people. They had admission in a lot of schools like Castellea and all, Sacred Heart. But they chose Girls' Middle School. So one of the aspects of the Girls' Middle School is that they do not give you a letter grade. So, my wife and I were saying this is very interesting, because, How can you get evaluated? So I was talking to Arya, my older granddaughter, and I said, Arya, how is it, how do you feel about it? And instead of saying, oh, I'm so happy that we don't get a letter grade, she actually gave me a very good answer. She said that when I used to get letter grades in my previous school, like A minus, B plus, or whatever, then there will be, an A minus, then a circle. And then there is nothing else about the feedback. She says, now I like it a lot better because the teacher actually has gone through my essay and she marks it up and say, this was very well done. This you needed improvement. So she says, I get a lot of feedback. Instead of just getting a letter grade, I thought that was a great answer. And so similarly, there is no grades that are given to you in your study of Vedanta. You have to grade yourself. And the way to grade yourself is to go through these 7 examples and say, is this true for me yet or not? If not yet, then you are here. If you say, yes, this is becoming good for me, then you are here. Like that, you evaluate yourself. So, chitta uparamanam, atmanaha pashyan, atyantika sukham, yatra ayam sthitaha tatvataha na chalati, atyantika labhaha, yasmin sthitana vichalyate, dukkha samyoga viyogam, can be seen as definitions, points of self-evaluation, and an understanding that this is where I'm going, this is what will happen to me. So this section completed from verse number 20 to 23. Now that is done, and so in number 24 and 25 today, Sri Krishna goes back to the method of doing dhyana. In other words, it's somewhat of a revision. And then this is how it is done, is that you explain something, then you go into a section of the results of it, then you go back to a consolidation of the method itself. So this is how it is done. Not easy, so you have to keep working at it. And Sri Krishna in his way of explaining now goes back to the method. What is the practice of meditation? What is dharana? What is dhyanam? One more time. So let's look at that. So in number 24 he says, Sankalpa prabhavan kaman tyaktva sarvan asheshataha manasa eva indriya gramam viniyamya samantataha. So he says, the way meditation is to be done is giving up totally all desires which are born of thought, completely withdrawing the group of sense organs and organs of actions by the mind alone. Then, number 25, Shanai Shanaihi Uparamet Buddhya Dhriti Grihitaya Atma Samstham Manafkritva Na Kinchidapi Chintayet. With the intellect endowed with perseverance, may one slowly resolve the mind in the Atma, making the mind abide in the self. May one not think of anything else. So this is the translation. So let's look into what does it mean. So the first thing is, remember we are concentrating here on, not concentrating, but we are dealing with the process of meditation. So meditation here means creating a condition where the results of the vidya are gained in a very focused way. So we use those words carefully. So here's the situation. Vidya means knowledge is first exposed to my mind. And then I have to kind of like chew on it. So as I mentioned to you last week also, that Swami Paramarthananda gave a beautiful example. I really enjoyed that. I think I may have heard it before, but it kind of hit home with me. He says that eaten food does not benefit you. Digested food benefits. Of course, you have to start the digestion process by eating it. But really speaking, if you think about it, you don't swallow the food, you chew on it. Especially when you have things like, rotis and so on, you have to break it down, make it digestible. If you don't break it down, your body is going to have a problem. Supposing you take, this is what happens with children, they're so much in a hurry to play, they don't chew things and they have problems. And so really speaking, it is the digested food which is beneficial. So, nididhyasanam, mananam and nididhyasanam is the process of digesting shravanam. Beautiful example. You have to eat, you have to understand what it is, but you now have to chew on it. And meditation in particular is a method to gain the benefit of jnana. You see, this is the situation. Many times these truths appear to be bookish. They don't really apply to me. I don't see it. That's because I have not digested it yet. You see, that's the thing. So meditation is a method where you artificially create. This is another thing. So I'm just extending that thought. In order to digest, also you have to create the right conditions for digestion. So you have to, this is why you say that right after eating, you should not be doing vigorous exercise. Let the food be imbibed in the body. So meditation means during the day when you are working and talking to people and so on, you may not have the opportunity to imbibe the knowledge yet. But it would be good to create a condition where you're just by yourself, there's no botheration, and now you bring the thoughts that have been taught to you and see the truth of it as it applies to you. That really makes things digestible. That is where the benefits come in. So now the method of doing that, first the advantages were given, number 7. Now the method of doing that is being restated here by Krishna. And he says, Sankalpa prabhavan kaman tyaktva sarvan asheshataha. He says that please, the method of meditation is, as you are sitting down, you have a lot of thoughts related to who you are, what your relationship is, what needs to be done tomorrow, what needs to be done today, etc., your worries, your thoughts, and so on. Slowly disengage them from your mind. And so this is what it is said. So first thing is, turn the mind away from the worldly thoughts. Worldly thought means external world, family members, business conditions, both regarding the present, future, and we cannot afford to do that all day long. This is the controlled situation. At least you should be able to do it in the controlled situation. Because there also, if you are worried about, what am I going to do, this, that, or the other, then meditation will not be effective. But if you sit down and say, just for now, now this is what we often say, that you may have seen us in practicing meditation, you do a sankalpa to your mind before you start meditating and say, listen, all day long I'm playing different roles. For now, I don't want to play roles. I want to investigate who I am, the person who is playing the role. I have plenty of time to devote to roles, but this is without the roles. Who is the person? You tell this to your mind and say, is that clear? Please follow me. This is what my objective is. So here also it says that sankalpa prabhavan kaman tyaktva sarvan asheshata. That you just, and of course thoughts will come. They are not going to just suddenly stop. But you are saying, not now. Not now. I want to be free to do my investigation in a different area. So the first thing is the outside. Then, and so here kamans means desires for the future. Your desires are always for the future. Regrets are about the past, but the desires of the future. So when the mind says, oh, by the way, we need to make booking to go there, say, not now. We'll do that later. So you give up all desires in that sense. Swami Paramarthananda has said this. He says, somebody in the Shastra says, if you think about it, a person generally operates in abstentia. In other words, if you really examine it, very few times you are here now. You're always thinking of something or the other. And the person says, hey, I'm talking to you. He says, oh, okay, really? What were you saying again? Because you were someplace else. So here it says, please try not to be in abstentia. Be here now. This is number one. Then, the next thing is, so this is the external world. Now the interesting, very good commentary on this word sankalpa prabhavan. Sankalpa prabhavan means, the word sankalpa means a decision. I will do this. It's called sankalpa. Like we do just before the puja, we do a sankalpa. So that means, hey Ishvara, I have made a decision to do a puja under the following situation. This is my decision. This is what is called sankalpa. So sankalpa prabhavan means ideas occur to you and you give some reality to it by making a decision. So Krishna says, please don't do that. What does it mean? What happens is because he says that a wave of a water always starts with a small ripple. It doesn't immediately come up most of the time. But then the ripples are now expanded so it becomes a wave. Similarly, here also, when an idea occurs, it is best to negate it while it is still in a very nascent form. And say, no, I'm not that interested. Okay? Don't bother me. But what happens is you follow it and you expand on it and you make it into real. Swami Dayanandji had given a beautiful example. It's always stayed with me in my life, I tell you. He said, if you look at your children, when they go to, and this happened to us, I remember that when our children were going to high school. In a high school, you have lots of different kinds of people with different ideas. Some are studious, some are playful, some of them are semi-criminal. All kinds of people are there. Some of them, this is where drinking is first started. High school is So you cannot avoid that. You cannot avoid that. Swamiji used to say that. He says that give an advice to your children, because if it's not possible. You're sitting in a class and in the mix there are a lot of people. And you cannot say, I'm not going to sit next to you or something, because you'll be ostracized. Then you will say, hey, what are you trying to get away from me? You say, sit there. But you know what? You don't have to follow them. If they come in and say, I remember there was when one of my sons has gone to high school, he started to hang out with a group where they would bring their own beer in the car. Somehow we got and they were, obviously some good people, and we said, don't even be with them. Because once you start going with them, beer leads to something else. And we told him, I already gotten instructions from Swami Dayanandji on how to deal with this. He said, don't avoid anybody, but don't go with them. So this is exactly what is meant by sankalpa prabhavan. Means that if some thoughts come to you, they're going to come. You cannot avoid it. You have a lot of background and so on. But you don't have to follow it. So he says, just let it go. And in fact, in the second chapter, there's a very famous verse that we studied actually, how the association leads to kaman. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangas teshu upajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho abhijayate. And this often happens. Especially in the sports, this happens. You are just watching somebody on the sports, and pretty soon you get interested. What team is this on? And who is playing? What is his background? Then you turn on the TV and you watch that sport only. And then you become sad or happy because of that. Initially, you didn't even know anything about it. So anyway, this is what it is said that at the seed level itself, divert your mind. It's easy to let go of it, but once it becomes a sankalpa, then it's much more difficult to do that. He says that do not put your signature on it. Okay. All right, so this is number one. Then, second line, Manasa eva indriya gramam viniyamya samantataha. So, the second one is, see where the outside thoughts are entering you. They're generally through your sense organs. Sounds, smells, and so on. And if you are careful, you will say, I'm not going after that. So the indriya, so the second line is talking about, the first one is sankalpa, the second one is the disturbance created by your sense organs. This is just during meditation now. We're not talking about the whole day. But the good habits of meditation will now flow into the rest of your day. If you don't have some area where you can do an idealistic way of dealing with situations now, you have less of a chance of dealing with the other situations later. I remember Swami Dayanand had given such a beautiful example of this. He said, in the Second World War, when the German Nazi army was overtaking all of Europe, and it was very difficult to really defeat them, the American Army, Air Force, the entire structure, Air Force, Navy, etc., they came up with an ingenious way. And the way was, they felt that Normandy, on the coast of France, was not very well penetrated by the Germans. And they said, let us concentrate on capturing the coast of Normandy, consolidate our position, and from there, with that base, start to fight the Nazis elsewhere in the Europe. This worked beautifully. Swamiji says the meditation is exactly like that. Because the whole day is such a war going on in your mind. There's so many things expected out of you, and habits of the past, and so on. But what you can do is to create a Normandy-like situation where you are in control, and you put some good habits in the way you're dealing with your thoughts. Beautiful example. And if you do that and you become serious about it, good at it, skilled at it, then from there, that base, you have a better idea of dealing with the life situations even outside of meditation. So this is what he was talking about. So there, the habits of, and I think the indriyas and so on, the sense organs, it means that it doesn't mean that it has to be completely quiet. But you don't have to, every sound that comes in, you don't have to follow it. You'll say, let it be. If there's a television on, there's a radio on, you can just, you have the ability to ignore it completely and just concentrate on what you're trying to do. So that's the advice given in number 24. Then, Shanaihi Shanaihi Uparamet, number 25. Buddhya dhriti grihitaya atma samstham manaf kritva na kinchidapi chintayet. So here, Lord Krishna says that the withdrawal of your mind can be done gradually. You do not have to suddenly turn from what would be called the very easily objectifiable thoughts to the one that you want to go to, which is the subtlest of the thoughts. The Atma is very subtle. And you cannot suddenly go to the subtlety of the Atma. The mind has to take some steps. This is very famous in our Shastra, called Shakha Chandra Nyaya. You may have heard about that. Shakha Chandra Nyaya is given as an example where there is a new moon which is barely visible. Chandra means a moon, and a new moon which is barely visible, especially if there is some light there. So there is an old man sitting on his on a bench outside in the evening, and he says, "Wow, what a beautiful moon!" And it was inside, it was through the trees that he happened to see it. And his son was sitting there and he says, "Dad, where? I don't see it." He says, "Don't you see it? It's very beautiful." He says, "No, I don't see it." So he says, "Okay, here's the tree. Do you see the tree?" He says, "Yes, of course I see the tree." "Okay, go to the left-hand branch, then go to this one, then go to this one." "Ah, yes." This is what is called Shakha Chandra Nyaya. And Nyaya means that from the easily visible thing, you have to go to something more subtle. So similarly here also, the mind, in order to be quiet and to look at the Atma, you cannot suddenly say, "Okay, where's the Atma?" It's not visible. But if you start to slowly withdraw from the very obvious objects and bring it to a more subtle form, and in a way, this is another example given, is what is called tuning. The tuning of the, sometimes when you're looking at something and it's not tuned very well, you can see it hazily. But it requires some fine-tuning. And the amazing thing is that it is yourself that you're looking at. What a creation. You are the one that you're looking at. How can I be so subtle? But the way you are is not appreciated. And that appreciation has to be done in a very subtle manner. Why? Because then you are being crowded by other thoughts that you have to slowly recede in the background. And then you can, this is the example that, for example, when there's a lot of other sounds going on and so on, then a particular thing that you're looking at is not visible. Take, for example, the ticking of the clock. You cannot hear it until you become quiet. It is there always, but you have to quieten things, and then the ticking becomes very obvious. So that's the Shakha Chandra Nyaya. So now the method given is Dhriti Grihitaya. Dhriti Grihitaya means You see the objects in the world and you find that they are not yours. Nothing belongs to you. They are being given to you for your own growth, but you don't own them. Like, for example, supposing you have some thoughts, some cars and computers and so on and so forth. It's not important that you own them. These days, of course, even cars, you go to Uber and Lyft and so on. But the point given is, this is an important thing to see. If you have a sense of ownership, then it belittles your understanding of who you are. You feel, I'm an owner of these things. You relatively forget the fact that they are instruments for your growth and utilization. Cars are to be utilized, computers are to be utilized. They are given to you. You don't need to own them. Very similarly to that is your families, your children, food that you have. They are all meant for your utility. But they don't belong to you. There's only one person they belong to, which is Ishvara. So you are being made a trustee out of it, not an ownership out of it. So the way of dealing with the thoughts is, these are given to me as for me to utilize for my own growth. And I am not bound by them. I am not the owner of them. They are manifested to me for my utility. So in that sense, you don't claim anything to be yours. Paramatma alone is the owner of it, and you enjoy and you utilize them for your own growth. Therefore, you withdraw your mind from the external world, which is possible to be done, and you can do it. Then you come to your body. In your body also, you don't own your body. Same methodology. The body is not owned by you, it is given to you. It is given to you for utility, utilization. Just like a car is also given to you. You can rent a car. You are really renting a body. Renting in the body means that you did your karmas in the past life, and then something was given to you. Say, I would like to have a body like this. This is exactly what happens. When you say karma, it's a result of your own previous thoughts. And so something is given to you. The problem is, because of the non-understanding, what is given to me becomes me. So in order to disassociate yourself from it, you have to develop the feeling that it is not just me, it is given to me. And in that sense, the segmentation of the body is an important one. So, the pranamaya kosha, dealing with annamaya kosha, pranamaya kosha, manomaya kosha, is the segmentation that you have to see, that it is not always with me. It is utilized by me from time to time, but it is not always with me. So, to come to your consciousness, what you have to do is that I have to be able to see, like for instance, just as an example, you think you are the body, but in the dream and deep sleep state, your body is not there. Your functioning as a person is without the body. If you were the body, it would be there 100% of the time, but it isn't. So that way of thinking, saying that it is available for me for some time, but that's not me. What is me is where you cannot separate from yourself. That is what you are. And that is the pure consciousness, in which the body is also there, not there. Mind is there, not there. In the deep sleep, the mind also disappears. So what comes and goes cannot be you. But what is you cannot be disturbed at all, which is the consciousnness. So in meditation, Shanai Shanaihi Uparamed means that not only the method is that first the outside things are given up, then your thoughts go to your own body, and that also is given up. Here, one thing to see, interestingly enough, that in the manifestation of the human form, any form, but here the human form, there are two things that are manufactured by the Creator. One is what is called bhogya. Bhogya means one which is experienced. The outside world is experienced. Bhogya. The other one is bhokta. Bhokta means the experiencer. What is experienced and what is experiencer? They are both manufactured by Ishvara for you. And both of them, both the experienced and the experiencer, are worth giving up. The problem is, so the first one is the experienced give up, all the thoughts of the outside world. Then you have to travel to the experiencer and try to see your separation from the experiencer as well. So this is where the kosha analysis comes in. Panchama, pranamaya kosha, etc., etc. Then when you are giving that up, you are now ready to think about who are you? Because right now you're so covered with things that are not you, that your entry into the realm of thinking as to who you are is being blocked. So this whole messaging, the whole advice by Krishna is to say, before you are ready to enter into an understanding of who you are, you need to block off things that are not there for you. Remember we gave this example of watching a movie. Remember that? There was the example was that there it is a reverse example, because the movie has some reality that you do not appreciate until you actually put your some position to appreciate it. And then you sit down and you take your seat and then you switch off your cell phone and you set aside the popcorn, and then then you are now watching the movie. Even when you are watching the movie, the thought of yourself is still there. So this is what is called savikalpa samadhi. Thought of yourself as a movie watcher. You look at your watch and say, okay, now this is so much so, then I have to go and pick up someone after the movie. So there your identification is as a movie goer. And then slowly the movie, so you have to sort of give up your sense as a movie goer and start to get into the movie itself. And it doesn't happen right away. But one thing after the other, if the plot is useful and good for you, you start to identify with the plot of the movie. Then you start having some tears or laughter or something, as though you are just part of it. Very similar situation to this also. So what happens is that you are as an individual, as a jiva. It's like a moviegoer. And then you have relationships. Who are you sitting next to? And etc., etc. The lights are on and you're disturbing and there are people still coming in. You're still as a moviegoer. So here also the outside thoughts, the body thoughts, the relationship thoughts are constraining you into not understanding the Atma. But once you slowly and resolutely, not only slowly, but just say, yes, ignore it, I don't want that. You do that, you are ready to see the movie about yourself. And the movie about yourself should have been introduced to you by the knowledge of the Shastra. It won't become obvious to you just by removing the other thoughts. So, for example, the Shastra says that the Atma is Nityaha. I just give you some ones here. It says Nirgunaha, Nishkalaha, Nityaha, Niranjanaha, Nirakaraha, Nirvikalpaha. Nir. So we saw this earlier in the 4th or 5th chapter. What we saw was, if you can recall this is to understand that I am not a functioning appliance alone. I am the electricity that is going in and through my body and mind. And there is a fundamental difference between electricity and an appliance. The appliance reflects the electricity, but the electricity is not limited by the appliance. If the appliance fails, the electricity does not fail. It is not defined by the properties of the appliance. It has an independent property. This is what electricity is. Similarly, the Atma is functioning in the appliance of the body, but it has an independent nature. Nitya. Nitya means that it is never changing. Nirakara means has no form. So at least the electricity has some areas that it has to travel through. But the Atma, the light of the Atma, has no limitations. Another way to look at this is, for example, that the light which is showing this room is not limited by the things in this room. If the things are not there, it is still lighting. If the things are there, then it is lighting the things. But it is an independent entity, which is the light. Now the Atma is something even more peculiar. Because at least the light itself is electricity. It has some properties. And it can be switched off. The Atma cannot be switched off. Doesn't need to be switched. In fact, nothing will be there unless the Atma which says, I know, I am. This is the one which is lighting up all the experiences. Nirakara has no form to it. It is the very presence. So this is the plot of the movie that I have to appreciate and become one with it, identify with it. You see this? This is the situation. So again we say that the Nididhyasanam is not a thoughtless state. It is, but only when I completely appreciate who I am. And what I am is, if I do not appreciate that I am timeless, that I'm already there all the time. The time comes and goes. The time is only there relative to the state I am in. If I am in a waking state, then it has its own time situation. If I am in a dream, it has its own time scale. And if I am in deep sleep, it has no time there at all. So the time also comes and goes, and it has different manifestations. I am not time bound. I am the very nature of consciousness which is always there. Nitya, Nirakara. And this kind of appreciation, which has so many different facets to it. One facet, for example, is that one which is never born. Never born. Births are within it, but by itself it is never born. And if it is never born, it cannot die. Only things that are born die. So there's so many aspects to this that I have. And Shastra gives you all of this. Because right now I cannot think of this on my own. I have complete ignorance. But the Shastra gives me all of the truthful aspects of the Atma which are like a movie. Kind of like a movie. In the sense that the plot is very beautiful. And I cannot appreciate the plot unless my status as a movie goer recedes into the background. Beautiful imagery of this. I thought this understanding of what Nirvikalpa Samadhi is And I'm bringing it all these points together. This is not just a yogic samadhi, which is mindlessness, but an understanding that I am no longer just a jivatma, that really Paramatma is the one which is infused in me. This kind of a movie has to be appreciated in terms of knowing. So look at this. The knowledge of the movie is necessary, and the ability for me to appreciate the knowledge of the movie has to be done by me by removing the covering of other things from it. Then I'm ready to investigate into my own nature. So this is the purpose of this part of the Bhagavad Gita. He says, in the end, so I'll read both 24 and 25 and towards the end, Sankalpa Prabhavan Kaman Tyaktva Sarvan Asheshataha. So removing all of the sankalpas. Similarly, Manasa Eva Indriya Gramam. So Gramam here, the word I didn't comment on, was called the collection. The collection of all the manas and indriya, viniyamya samantataha, just giving them up, shanaihi uparamet, buddhya driti grihitaya, then what to do? Atma samstham manaf kritva na kinchidapi chintayet. Means that your mind should be utilized to appreciate the Atma Samstham. There is nothing more to be done. That is the end point. There is not anything more. Okay, I've done this, what else is there? There is nothing else. All the limitations are removed and the completeness of the Atma is now appreciated. Na kinchidapi chintaye means that your mind will no longer worry about anything else. It will be so happy to discover that my very nature is completeness, is Advaya. So there is no question of any other thoughts coming in to disturb you. And that's the state that I have to really come out to. So that's the going back to the very nature of the meditation, not the result of the meditation, but the very nature of the meditation. One other thought that Swamiji had given here. And this is also given in the Shastra, that sometimes you get a very pleasant experience in meditating. You become very happy. Even that has to be given up. And I can tell you this from personal experience, because when we first learned from Swamiji back in the 70s, the pleasant experience was really nice to hear, to see, because when we would hear it and meditate on it and so on. And in a way it became an obstruction, because the pleasant experience would not last. So you would want to go back to the experience of the pleasantness rather than investigate the nature of the pleasant experience. That takes much more time to do. So it's not as though one should not enjoy, that's not the point. But if you were to say that this pleasant enjoyment is the end result, it is not. Because that also is nothing but a temporarily happy mind. Just like eating ice cream is also a pleasant experience, but that's not a solution in life. So similarly, even from a listening and so on, if you were to just be yourself for a short time without the complete investigation, then that should be avoided. Avoided in the sense that you enjoy it, but don't say that is the end point. Keep going until you are able to become a complete Viveki. Good point here. So anyway, the end point of that, Swami Paramarthananda says is that Aham Chaitanya Swarupa, I am the very nature of consciousness. The very nature of consciousness. So, this is something that I think I've talked about that in some of the other classes also, that there is a complete reversal that needs to take place. What do you mean by a reversal? Right now, I feel I am a human being endowed with consciousness. Very obvious. Yes, I'm a conscious human being. So whenever you are describing yourself as a human being, one of the aspects of yourself is that I have the ability to be conscious. And consciousness can be defined as, I'm awake, I'm alive, etc., etc. But this is our conclusion. Everybody's conclusion, that I'm a human being and I'm a conscious human being. You can ask a 7-year-old child, they're the same thing. Turns out this is not true. Not true. What do you mean by it's not true? What is true is not that I am there is a human being who's conscious, but I am a consciousness who is expressing as a human being. This is the reversal that has to take place. This is the understanding, this is the conclusion, this is the conviction that I need to get, that my nature is pure consciousness. I'm a conscious being, an independent being. It's very much like, you feel that you are a appliance that has electricity. A functioning fan, for example, may feel, hey, who are you? And say, I'm a fan and I'm functioning. But in fact, if you are the electricity, then your identification as a fan can be given up. Then you become electricity. So similarly here also, what change has to happen is a firm conviction that I am Nitya, I am an Atma which is unchanging, Nirvikara, without any form, all those kinds of things, unborn. That can work in a human being. And right now I am associated with humanness. But the humanness is not intrinsic to me, that is incidental to me. Consciousness is intrinsic to me. So this is what is called Atma Samstham Manavkritva. Your mind has to clearly understand And then no other way of thinking is really necessary. So this culminates in the 2 verses of the revisiting of the very method of meditation that Sri Krishna has talked about. So we'll stop at that point and take up the rest of the things. I guess there's no class next week. I'll be in India, so we'll start 2 weeks from today on the rest of it. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Rani?
So I wanted to get a little bit more, if you could, you said that sometimes when you do meditation you kind of feel happy and that's not the end result that you should be striving for. It's okay to have that feeling but go beyond it.
Mm-hmm.
So is it the understanding that I am the consciousness and realizing that and that seeing that reality and I'm not the body, the inquiry into myself, is that what is the end? Which should we be getting in our meditation?
So interestingly enough, yeah, that's a good question. Excuse me. Oftentimes it is said that you keep thinking of yourself as the Sakshi. Be the observer of things and concentrate on that. A lot of advice is given on that. Not good advice. Why is it not good advice? Because to keep on saying I'm the Sakshi, I'm the Sakshi, I'm the Sakshi, and not go a little bit beyond the implications of what that means that the inquiry is incomplete. Yes, I am the Sakshi, but what it means is implications of being just a Sakshi are enormous that needs to be understood. For example, is a Sakshi ever born? Has to be understood as Sakshi is unborn. Unborn? What do you mean by unborn? Where did it come from? It must have been there sometime. That has to be understood. A Sakshi is only here, or am I everywhere? That has to be sought through. So there are various implications of the truth about the Atma, which can simply be hidden by simply saying, I'm the Sakshi, I'm the Sakshi, I'm the Sakshi. So I'm the Sakshi is true, but it's only a very minor part of the whole thing. What if there is nothing to observe? Then who am I? All that has to be thought through. So therefore, to be happy now at this point is good. But until you have explored all the aspects of what the Atma means, that I am independent of time, unborn, therefore never possible to die. Have you explored that all yet? Well, no, but I'm just happy for the time being. Well, congratulations, but you have only reached only a certain part of it. That's what we mean by that. So it's really a full exploration of the enormity of this knowledge that has to be investigated, understood, internalized, and then freedom comes. Not just a casual understanding of one aspect of it and feeling happy about it. That's just a small part of it. Something like that. Yeah.
In a dream state, the person who is experiencing the dream,
Yeah.
is it real you or the Atma?
No, Atma is always that behind of all experiences. So it's not as though Atma is the self, the consciousness is involved in all experiences, whether it's dream or something. But then you as a jiva, as a person who is has taken this life, what is called pranadhari. Jiva is defined to be a pranadhari, means one who is alive at this moment, can further express himself or herself as a dreamer. That facility is given to me. Now, behind the dreamer, as a person, there is always Atma. The Atma, you cannot do anything without consciousness. The dream also is a dream phenomenon, is a consciousness phenomenon. Jagrata Avastha is a consciousness, so consciousness has to be there always. But the dreamer arises out of a jiva. Yes. I don't really, this is one of the things I've never really investigated, whether plants and animals also dream or not. I don't know. It will be hard to tell. Certainly human beings dream. But the ability to dream derives out of humanness, which is further supported by Adhyatma, something like that.
Sometimes it feels it's not me because I cannot put the brake on my car in sleep.
Yeah. So you cannot put a brake on the car.
When you dream, you're going in a car, it comes to an accident, you try to put the brake, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work, yeah. The Shastra says, by the way, just talking of dreams, that you and I cannot recall anything about our previous life in our Jagrata Avastha, in our waking state. But they say that in dream, Ishvara has allowed previous life's experiences also to penetrate that. Sometimes some of the people that you see are not only vasanas from this life, could be vasanas from the previous life. Doesn't mean very much, it's just one of those peculiarities, but that is in fact a fact, can happen. But that's the vasanas of previous life are only there in subconscious, not in conscious mind, by design. But because it will be too complicated if you would, your previous life is also recalled in your Jagrata Avastha. But in the confused state of the dream, it can happen. It's very possible. This is what Shastra says.
When the newborn is born, sometimes you can see them smile or expressions on their face.
That's very possible.
They say they are
Yeah. They are in
remembering
their,
their last previous life. I don't know.
No, but that's not true. They say that the newborn never smiles. In fact, the smile comes much later when you have recognition of something. I don't know if the brand new baby gets that. Is that known?
I have my grandson's picture. He was, I think, 2 or 3 days old,
I
and
see.
his eyes were kind of like a roof, and he was smiling. I have taken
Wow.
that picture.
That
I
is
really
very
can
possible.
find, yeah.
Yeah.
Or they were twins, they're like expressions almost.
Yeah,
on
some
their
expression
face,
was
yeah.
there.
It